In this video, I'm going to go over two problems that are more difficult than the normal expression that you were asked to factor. And we are going to be using the concept of factoring using the sum or difference of cubes. So the first thing I look at 16 and 250, and they're not on this list. As a reminder, when you do sum or difference, we can have addition or subtraction. I also look and go, this isn't divisible by 3, and this isn't divisible by 3. And I think most students would write not factorable. But instead, what I'm going to suggest we do is we start with one of the numbers. So I'm going to start with 16. Now, 16 lies between 8 and 27. And I'm going to divide by the numbers that are to the left of it. So I'm going to take 16 divided by 8, and I get a whole number. So I believe if I factor out a 2, this may work. Let's try. 16 divided by 2 and 250 divided by 2. Notice that if I factor out a 2 from both of these numerical values, I end up with 8 and 125, which are both on the list. So I want to factor out a 2. Also, I have 2 x's in the front term, and I have 5 x's in the back term. The most I can take out of both would be 2 x's. What am I left with? Whether you use parentheses or brackets, they do the same thing. They just help us group things properly. 2 times 8 is 16. I already have 2 x's. 2 times 125 is 250. I need 5 x's and I only have 2. Now I have 3. So looking at this, I want to break down this piece. I can see 8 is up above and it breaks into 2, 2, 2. 125 is up above, it breaks into 5 times 5 times 5. And x to the third, when I divide it by 3, I get x, x, x. Don't forget about bringing 2x squared down. What do I put into these open blanks? Well, this is always going to be a positive. Now, this particular problem, we have a given sign in between that was positive. Opposite of positive is negative. I'm going to take 1, 2 from the front and a 5x from the back. Sometimes students get confused and they want to put the x in front. Notice the 5 and the x are in back of the sign and the 8 is in front. Now, 2 times 2 is 4 and 5 times 5 is 25 with an x squared. In the middle here, we already know the symbol is subtraction, so I just need to multiply the front 2 terms. 2 times 5 is 10 with an x. Let's look at the last example in this tutorial. 64 and 8 are both on the list. And some of you may recognize right away that you can factor out a value other than 1 from 64 and 8. Others may not recognize that right away, and you can do that at the end. As long as you recognize at some point, it's going to be okay. So I'm going to show you 2 different ways to complete this. I recognize that 8 I can factor out, and I'm left with 8 times 8 is 64, x to the third, minus 1, y to the third. 8 breaks into 2, 2, 2. 1 breaks into 1, 1, and 1. Dividing this by 3, we get x squareds. And dividing this by 3, I could just get y's. And so that could have allowed me to get the answer. Let's see, we're given subtraction. So the 2's and the x's are in front. 2's and x's are in front. And 1's and y's are in the back. Now I gotta cancel that out. And I'm going to slow this down here. So in this position, I need 2 times 2 is 4, but there's not 2 x's remaining. Each one of these is 2 because 2 plus 2 plus 2 is 6. So I actually have x to the 4th. X squared and x squared multiply to give you x to the 4th. And I'm back, 1 times 1 is 1, and y is y squared. So in this position, we already know the sign. 2 times 1 is 2, and we have x squared y. What do I do down here? Like, what if you didn't recognize right away that you could factor out an x? Let me turn this to the side. Okay, if you didn't recognize that, we'd break this into, let's see, 64. So if I write this down again, sorry, let me give you just a little more room here. 64x to the 6th minus, it was 8y to the 3rd. And so what I'm demonstrating right now is how we can achieve the same answer as long as you recognize at some point you're able to factor out a value. So in this case, we're going to pretend that you didn't recognize you could factor out an 8, okay? What do we do? Well, 64 breaks into 4 times 4 times 4, and 8 breaks into 2, 2, and 2. We already said that this is x squared, and this is y. So I make my little marks here. So from the front, I take 4x squared and 2y. So 4x squared and 2y. Now 4 times 4 is 16, and we have x to the 4th. 2 and 2 gives you 4. And we have 2 times 2 is 4 with y squared. Okay, I've got all that. And then this middle piece, we're going to multiply to get 8x squared y. Mathematically, I haven't done anything wrong, but at this point, you have to recognize if you can factor something out of here, you're also going to be able to factor a value out of this. So I recognize the largest number I can take out of 4 and 2 is 2. So I factor out of 2 to get 2x squared minus 1y. And then over here, I'm like, what is the largest number? I can take a 4 out of everything. So take out a 4, and I'd be left with 16 divided by 4 is 4. 8 divided by 4 is 2. 4 divided by 4 is 1. And then we are going to multiply the two coefficients to get 8. And now this is the exact same answer we had as if we would have factored out an 8 from the very beginning. This is the same answer that we have right here.